Today's topic is how to deal with anxiety. What is anxiety? Where does it come from? And is it possible to deal with it once and for all? Let's see. Anxiety is a negative emotion or feeling which may vary from being very subtle in the background and the person not even conscious of it, or it may grow in intensity to an almost unbearable burden, to almost a devastating feeling. In the more subtle forms, where it tends to be continuous but hidden in the background, it is caused most often by a thought, a belief, an unconscious belief that something bad might happen to you or your loved ones in a future moment. Now everything is okay at this moment, but there in the future lies the threat that something might happen. And the most easy example I can think of is with the current situation, global pandemic situation, where a lot of people who are not affected by the virus are still consumed by the thought, by the fear that they or their parents, their loved ones might get infected, might contract the virus. And this fear might become really might get hold of this individual in its grip. The other cause of anxiety may not have a specific, due to specific thinking or belief or perspective. It might be just coming from the past, an emotion which was asleep or lingering from your past, and at some points becomes more pronounced. Probably it feels like you don't have an explanation, but it's in your, you can feel it, it's somewhere in your general state, energetic, your emotional body. Somewhere there is this this anxiety. So how can we deal with it? Can we deal with it? Most often what people do is, if they are even able to identify, to recognize what's the trouble, what's troubling them, what's causing this anxiety, if they are able to recognize it, they try to change their mind to a more positive belief, try to oppose another belief more positive to this one. And sometimes this does work. Let's give an example, and I think that we all could relate to this one. Remember when you were dating someone and you started to fall in love, mm, and he or she promised to give you a call or should have texted you, but then the call or the text message didn't come for a long time. You were waiting and waiting, and sure, he never called. And at some point you noticed that you are thinking anxious thoughts which started to creep in. Did she forget about me? Why isn't she calling? And then the subtle fear that maybe he or she doesn't share the same feelings as you. And what we do usually, we start to, when we realize those anxious thoughts, we start to oppose to them some positive ones. For example, maybe he or she just forgot, maybe they have been caught up at work or something, there's some explanation, and you start to and sometimes it works. You convince yourself that it's okay, and yet even if you convince yourself, there is always this unconscious, deep-seated fear that the opposite is true. So is there another way? How can we overcome the anxiety when we become aware of it? And yes, there is. And it is realizing that in our mind we were fearing the future or resenting the past, but we were projecting ourselves in a future situation, and we are not present at that moment. What do I mean by present? This is to be able to recognize and acknowledge what is here and now without thinking of it, becoming immediately aware of your surrounding, where you are, the noises going on around you, taking all the everything that you see around you and the noises, taking them all in, but without any mental interpretation, without thinking, just being here, recognizing the textures, the shapes, the colors, the sounds, the silence when the sounds subside, recognizing that we are alive in our bodies, being aware of those thoughts, anxious thoughts, but not fixating on them, not dwelling, not believing them as true, just letting them float by and keeping our awareness into the present moment, what's here and now. And it feels liberating. You're not dependent on what happens. You just accept whatever happens, embracing this moment. Realize you're not only your thoughts, but there is something much more vast, infinite, timeless, that you are. And in that state, when you are connected to that deeper dimension, almost like a tree with its roots deep into the ground, when an anxious, so to say, thought comes, you recognize it for what it is. You don't believe 100% to what the thought is, what will happen, what might. It's just a thought, and it doesn't grab you and triggers anxiety and negative emotions. You can let go, or you may take corresponding action, but it doesn't have power over you. You have a different more deep foundation for who you are, and the external events and thoughts and which occasionally come do not possess you completely, and it feels good. So when you become aware that anxious thoughts are starting to come, try not to think, but be present in the moment. Sense your beingness and most essential nature. See if you are able to do it and see what happens. Thank you.